From Vermont Public, this is The Frequency. I'm Bob Kinzel filling in for Mitch Wertlieb. It's Tuesday, February 25th, and here are today's headlines. The Essex Westford School District is bringing a level-funded budget to its voters this spring. Given inflationary pressures, that's going to mean deep cuts. The district spending proposal anticipates eliminating more than 50 positions, and it would effectively close Summit Street School, an elementary school with 187 students. School Board Chair Robert Carpenter says such cuts are painful, but there are some silver linings. Repurposing Summit would allow the district to expand its in-house therapeutic program for students with special needs. Carpenter says that will allow the district to save money on tuition to pricey private programs and better serve kids close to home.
The board was really excited for this opportunity to really keep kids in our district instead of having to send them on an hour-long bus ride to wherever and also pay quite a bit to tuition them to different programs that were out of the district, not being able to stay within their own social networks and being able to stay within their own community.
Essex and Westford voters head to the polls on April 8th. A strong winter tourism season may be benefiting Vermont's sports betting industry. A new report from the Department of Liquor and Lottery shows that bettors put just over $2 million on this year's Super Bowl. Commissioner Wendy Knight says the share of gamblers from out of state has been growing this winter to about a third of all participants, and she says their average bets are roughly double those made by Vermonters. Knight thinks a healthy amount of snow has been a key factor.
So we have a lot of out-of-staters that are coming up to Vermont, happen to be in Vermont during the Super Bowl. I think our tourism economy really is reflected in a lot of these stats that we continue to see.
Just over 100,000 bets were placed on the Super Bowl in Vermont. A new 25% tariff on Canadian exports to the United States could be in place as soon as next Tuesday. Some Vermont state lawmakers are concerned that tariffs could increase the cost of goods for Vermonters. Senate Minority Leader Scott Beck, a Republican from St. Johnsbury, discussed the tariffs yesterday on Vermont Edition. He cited the already high cost of goods like eggs and lumber.
Tariffs don't get paid by governments and they don't get paid by businesses. They get paid by consumers. We're just coming off a really high inflationary period. We're not really in a position for people to absorb another inflationary jump.
Canada and Mexico are reportedly working on strengthening border security and drug enforcement efforts as a way to encourage the Trump administration to back away from the tariffs. And speaking of the administration, Vice President J.D. Vance is scheduled to visit Vermont this weekend. The Vance family is planning a ski trip at Sugarbush Resort and will stay at the Pitcher Inn in Warren. That's according to the Valley Reporter. Republican Governor Phil Scott currently does not have plans to meet with Vance, his office told VT Digger. According to state police, the public should expect delays and a bigger law enforcement presence near the vice president. Coming up, pretty much everyone agrees Vermont needs more housing, but setting up the infrastructure to build more units can be tricky. Learn more from reporter Carly Berlin after this.
Thanks for listening to The Frequency, where support comes from VITA, supporting business growth and innovation in the Green Mountain State. From agriculture to manufacturing, energy to food production, find solutions that turn your business dreams into reality. Visit VEDA.org and see how VITA can help make it happen.
A lot of rural Vermont lacks basic municipal infrastructure. Without it, towns can't build more homes. To fix that, Governor Phil Scott wants lawmakers to put more money towards expanding water and sewer systems. But as Carly Berlin reports, putting pipes in the ground can get political.
Over 6 years ago, the small Franklin County town of Montgomery decided that it should build its first ever municipal wastewater system. Basically, a community septic connecting to all the properties in the town centers with big leach fields up a hill.
So if you head up 242, maybe quarter of a mile, that's when you get to what's going to be the wastewater recovery facilities.
Charlie Hancock is the chair of the select board here. Without this system, he says, businesses in this bustling town near Jay Peak can't grow. Adding more homes would be a challenge, and so is maintaining old ones. He points to a stately red building that once housed a restaurant and a few apartments.
That place has been shut for going on more than 20 years now. If you look at the size of the lot where it's located, Main Street's here, the river's there.
Which means there's not much space for an up-to-date septic, and that's likely limited redevelopment.
Those are the challenges that are keeping places like that vacant.
Expanding infrastructure like wastewater is a key goal of Governor Phil Scott. That's because more water lines, sewer systems, and roads, they're the foundation Vermont needs to build more homes, says Housing Commissioner Alex Farrell.
The thing that's going to hold us back from building the housing is that we have a lack of infrastructure.
So the Scott administration is asking lawmakers to put more funding toward rural infrastructure this legislative session, on top of some big grants the state gave out during the pandemic. But Montgomery's case shows that money alone doesn't build wastewater systems. They've gotten a lot of state and federal cash, and still making this town's pipe dreams a reality has been anything but straightforward. After a landowner for one of the leach field sites pulled out, the town cut the scope of the project in half. Inflation and design challenges drove up the price tag. And recently, public opinion has curdled. A vocal group of opponents has emerged with a goal to quash the wastewater project.
If you were going to build this, just give me a yes or no answer.
Could I just have a
If you're putting these buildings up, who's going to live there?
Excuse me, I'm talking.
Let him talk. Let him flow it out.
That's from a select board meeting about the wastewater project in January. The main concern from this camp, it's that wastewater could bring more housing to town, specifically affordable housing, says Peter Locker, the chair of Montgomery's Planning Commission.
People came here to leave dense population and all the associated issues that go along with it.
Locker moved here from New Jersey a decade ago. He helped organize a petition that has forced a referendum vote on the wastewater project this spring. A lot of housing legislation at the state level in recent years has tried to encourage more development in places that have municipal water and wastewater. Locker doesn't like that.
We are cornering ourselves into housing initiatives created by Scott and Governor Scott's administration, whereby a wastewater system becomes a linchpin for affordable housing.
Drawn-out political battles over wastewater are pretty typical across Vermont. The tradition of local control often plays a key role, and so does the prospect of change, says Farrell, the housing commissioner.
We're seeing a lot of situations where there are members of a community that just push back because when they hear about a new system, they start picturing a completely different community.
In recent years, a lot of towns have actually given back money they got to build new wastewater systems. Like Westford, where a project that had been planned for over a decade got tanked by residents who worried it would lead to rampant development and threaten the town's rural character. There have been other local roadblocks, too. Moortown couldn't find a piece of land with the right kind of soils for their leach field. Greensboro looked at using a lot next to a church cemetery, but then the church pulled out. It wanted to make sure it had space for more graves in the future. Farrell sees a deeper tension here. On the one hand, there's the state's effort to encourage more infrastructure and more housing. And on the other is town's ability and willingness to grow.
At the end of the day, we can make all the best changes at the statewide level, and we're still going to be subject to what our municipalities do and the type of growth that they choose to enable.
Montgomery voters will have that choice on their ballots in the next few months. For Vermont Public, I'm Carly Berlin.
That was Report for America Corps member Carly Berlin. Carly covers housing and infrastructure for VT Digger and Vermont Public. Thanks for listening to The Frequency today. We had additional reporting from Lola DeFore, Michaela Lafrac, and Adia Golston. Our executive producer is Kevin Trevelyan. Our music is by Blue Dot Sessions. I'm Bob Kinzel. Talk to you tomorrow.